Okay, welcome to Parshat Chukat 5784. We have quite a bit to learn today. There's a lot of different situations going on in the Parsha, a lot of different important lessons that I think we can all gain from. And God willing, we'll actually try something very, um, I don't want to say nearly impossible, but we're going to try to summarize a major essay today, a major 20-page essay. We'll try to cover and try to understand it well to better understand some of the more complicated concepts in Judaism. The Parsha begins with a complicated concept, the whole idea of tuma, impurity, and how it attaches itself to death. And things become tame, become impure if they're in contact with death, or if they're in the same under the same roof with death, etc. And so we'll try to discuss some of that. There's a way to purify oneself through this whole concept, this process of Para Aduma, the red heifer, which in and of itself is one of the most complicated concepts in Judaism, as the Gemara says regarding Shlomo Melech, that he understood all the Torah, but this was even beyond the wisest of all men. This is somehow contains within it certain wisdom that even is beyond the wisest of all men. And we'll try to broach the subject, even though we are not the wisest of all men. We can still, try to get something out of it. There's supposed to be lessons for us to learn. We don't just raise up our hand and say, "I don't get it. Let's move on," unless there's no other option. But God willing, we'll have some other options, other ways to understand this whole concept of tuma, etc. Some of the greatest people in Jewish history die in this week's parsha. We've got the death of Miriam, the death of Aharon, we have the potential war almost with Edom, and of course one of the central events of the parsha is the sin, or whatever you want to call it. We've had in previous years, we've had different explanations of what exactly happened here, but what the sin of the Mei Meriva, of Moshe's hitting the rock instead of speaking to it, or calling the Jewish people rebels, or using the wrong stick, or hitting the wrong rock, or whatever it is that was his sin. We'll try to broach that subject, at least partially, today as well. So, like I said, a lot planned, and almost impossible, everything I have planned for this hour. So we'll see what we can do. All right, we'll begin with we'll start slow. We'll start simple. We'll start with the Ramban, as if that's simple. All right, let me share my screen. This is a source sheet that I neglected to send out, but will be available at when the video is uploaded to Facebook and to YouTube. This is live on Facebook, so anyway, I can't upload it now. So let's start. Chapter 19 is where Parshat Chukat begins. Chapter 19, verse 3, Gimel, says that there's this mitzvah of Para Aduma, and it's taught to, of all people, Tatam Ota El Elazar HaKohen, is taught to Elazar HaKohen. Now, Elazar HaKohen was indeed a Kohen. Elazar was the oldest son of Aharon, and he will eventually become the Kohen Gadol. That's true. However, right now, at the beginning of the Parsha, while Aharon is still alive, Elazar is a Kohen, like his brother, etc. It's not there doesn't seem to be a reason why he's commanded this mitzvah of Para Aduma, as opposed to who usually would be expected to be commanded this mitzvah is Aharon. Part of the process of the Para Aduma is that it's this perfectly pure red cow is taken outside of the town, and it's slaughtered there in his presence. So why Elazar HaKohen? Great question. You're not the first to ask the question. We're going to see the Ramban, and the Ramban is going to start by quoting, that's right, Rashi. And as is true about the Ramban, I hope it's true also for us. We should not be satisfied with Rashi. Rashi wouldn't want us to be satisfied with him. He gave a short 2-word answer to answer this question. Why Elazar? So he says, mitzvata bisgan. This mitzvah was given to the deputy, to the second in command, the sagan, the assistant, the vice Kohen Gadol. Okay, Rashi, why? So it happens to be, this is what Rashi says here, and he does not quote his source, as he doesn't always. Other commentaries later on in history told us who Rashi's source is, and now we're going to see from the Ramban what Rashi is talking about. So he says, "Ve'ein hakavana loma sheyeh chiyuv hamitzvah b'sgan yoter mekohen gadol or kohen hedyot." Rashi is not trying to tell you that it's a mitzvah specifically for the vice Kohen Gadol more than the Kohen Gadol or any other Kohen. This is a mitzvah for any Kohen. Ela l'horat shah haita. It happened to be that particular one-time rule is b'para harishona shehi be'Elazar hu hayasagan. That first Para Aduma was through Elazar the Kohen, and he happened to be the Sagan. He was the vice Kohen Gadol. And so what's the source of Rashi? Lashon Sifrei. This is the Lashon, this is the language of the Midrash Sifrei. And just to, one moment. I hate when that happens. Give me a quick moment here. How do you do that? That's how you do that. Back to full screen. Beautiful. All right. Okay. Okay. Still. Okay. Whatever it is. All right. So it'll be blue today. Who cares? Baha Katuv. So the verse is coming to teach you. V'limed al hapara shetehei naset bisgan. That so this is what Rashi was quoting. So Rashi in 2 words said it was the mitzvah of the Sagan. The Sifrei explains that it means that this pasuk is telling us, that's why it was said to Elazar, that it should be prepared by the Sagan. So this seems to contradict, by the way, obviously, what the Ramban just said. It's not specific to the Sagan, it just happens to be. Okay, so let's see how this works. Teda shekain sharei Aharon kaim ve'Elazar soref et hapara. So you can learn from this that the Kohen Gadol at the time, Aharon, was still alive, but it was Elazar whose job it was to burn, to soref the para, the Para Aduma. The verse says, "Tatem ota el Elazar haKohen naseid beElazar u'shar kol haperod Kohen Gadol divrei Rabbi Meir." The verse says, "Give it to Elazar haKohen." What's it? It is the Para Aduma, and it was prepared by the Kohen Gadol, by Elazar the Kohen, but Shar kol haperod, but all other Para Adumas is for a Kohen Gadol. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar, Ben Yaakov Omrim. So there's 3 other rabbis come up and say, no, Zo Neseid beElazar, Shar kol haperod, Ben a Kohen Gadol, Ben a Kohen Hedyot. So the other rabbis say, no, it was given to Elazar because not only can a Kohen, not Kohen Gadol, perform the Para Aduma the first time, it could be that way for the rest of history. Any ordinary Kohen can prepare the Para Aduma. So to explain, that was a quote from Sifrei. That's not the Ramban. Says the Ramban, "Va'inyan lomar ki ha-mitzvah hazo ba'omek soda ruya lehinaten lagadol b'shahakahuna." because of the sod, because of the secret, deep, mystical ideas and kavanas that a Kohen is supposed to have when they're performing the Para Aduma. Remember, the Para Aduma isn't just a process. There's also supposed to be some kavana, some thought, some intent that goes on in this as well, as in most things that a Kohen does. And in this concentration the Kohen has, what is he supposed to be thinking about? It's a very deep thing. It's beyond us. So some sort of deep concepts. But it was not given to Aharon. Meaning, why wasn't it given to Aharon? So he says, Vulai hu l'gdulato ki hu kadosh Hashem v'chasido u'mechaper b'mikdasho. Perhaps, maybe it's because that Aharon was so great, right? He was the Holy One of Hashem. He was the Chassid of Hashem, and his job was to atone for the people, to give them kapara. And Hashem didn't want to give Aharon, this holy great guy, this amazing person, he didn't want to give Aharon this schlepper job of taking the Para Aduma out into the city and shechting it there, outside of the city. That's outside of in this case, outside of the Mishkan. Oh, hayal lahaktir Elazar lachancho b'chai aviv. Or maybe it was because Hashem wanted Aharon to see his son Elazar being given a big responsibility in Aaron's lifetime. By the way, this is pretty much the end of Aaron's lifetime, so it's significant. This is his chance to see his son shining. I mean, his son son, right? He gets a chance to see his son at his height. Mitzvah achat ki mitzvot shel kuna gedola, or maybe, right? This is one of the ways that he got him into this job of Kohen Gadol. We know Elazar, as I said before, would be the Kohen Gadol in the future. So maybe this is sort of like I don't want to call it a test, but maybe like an early sort of like job to do that'll get him into the groove of being Kohen Gadol. Or Moshe Hadarshan. Or perhaps there's another reason completely unrelated to that. Perhaps it has something to do with the Egel Zahav, the golden calf, that Aharon had a part in, whatever that part was. Right, so that's an opinion of Rabbi Moshe Darshan, completely outside the Midrash here, right? Rabbi Moshe Darshan was one of the great teachers pre-Rashi, and that being the case, what Ramban is saying is perhaps there's another reason why Elazar was given this job. So we've got several reasons. We've got the Midrash that says that it's really just to teach you that anybody can do the job. It doesn't have to be the Kohen Gadol. We also have other reasons. Perhaps Aharon was too great to be schlepping a cow outside of the Mishkan, to be shechting it there. Or perhaps it's to show Aharon in his lifetime how great Elazar can be. Or perhaps it's for Elazar's sake, to get Elazar into the groove of being the Kohen Gadol, as he will be in the future. Or here's a fourth or fifth already reason, says the Ramban. Perhaps this was because of what Moshe Darshan said, and that's that Aharon had some guilt for the Egel Zahav, and so he shouldn't be the one responsible for the Para Aduma. And by the way, there's a lot of connections. This isn't the time for it, but certainly worth investigating further. There's a lot of connections between the Para Aduma and the Egel Zahav, as Rashi famously said, it's similar to the case of like when say a mother, for instance, makes a mess in the house and doesn't want to get in trouble, she might blame it on the baby, right? The baby did it or something. So that's obviously not the correct thing to do. That's midvar sheket tirchak, whatever. We're not going to talk about the ethics of that excuse. Perhaps for Shalom Bayis it might be okay. Not going to go into it. But the Rashi is using that as a metaphor for how the Para Aduma works. See, the Egel Zahav, the golden calf, brought tuma into the world, and so its baby, quote unquote, the red heifer, that cleans up that tuma.
They wouldn't have done they wouldn't have done the red heifer if it wasn't for the golden calf.
That's the way it seems from Rashi. Yeah.
Hmm. Wait, so like I know
Maybe
you're
they
not that
wouldn't. It could be that there wouldn't be tuma in the world. Or if they wouldn't have done the
smart.
golden calf, maybe they'd go straight into Israel and
Right.
um,
Right.
and
They wouldn't
not
need
have to
it.
do that. Pardon?
Oh, they didn't do it in Israel?
What?
The red heifer?
Eventually, no, they of course they did. No, they did.
Yeah, so
The point is that maybe they wouldn't have had to do that. Maybe there wouldn't be tuma in the world if they wouldn't have done the golden calf, and then the Jewish people would have gone straight into Israel when they were supposed to, instead of all the other mistakes that happened ever since then.
is
Once
there a
the,
comment right? Is there a commentary that you know that talks about like the color gold and red? Like with the regard to the calves, like it what the opposite of gold I wouldn't think is red.
no, no, I don't know. That sounds like something the Abarbanel would write about, but uh, not that I know of right now.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. We are going to plow forward and get right into a 20-page essay. We are not going to read the whole thing, obviously. And we're going to try to summarize as much as we can. Why it's important to even do this? I often get that question. What's the point of even learning this? It's like, what are you getting out of this? So there is an idea in Judaism of tuma, of impurity. The worst, the greatest, most powerful kind of impurity is tumat mate, the impurity that comes along with death. And we have to wonder, and perhaps in some ways, some commentaries write about how perhaps every kind of impurity has something to do with death, and that's why death is the worst of the impurities. Again, all of that requires some sort of explanation because death is just a natural process. Life, death, taxes, normal, natural things that happen to everybody. So why do we why does this have any kind of punishment or consequence or whatever you want to call it? Tuma is usually due to some sort of behavior. We're going to see in this essay, Rav Hirsch is going to point out that the Para Aduma, as we're about to see, includes in it an aspect of a chatat, a sin offering. So it's almost like death is a sin, which doesn't make any sense, right? So there's a lot that we have to explain, and God willing, we'll do the best we can under the circumstances. So this is a 20-page essay. I have the text here in case you're curious. We're going to start from let us consider. Here. So let us consider the laws set forth here regarding the Para Aduma and the Tumat Mate. Right? The Para Aduma cleans off this Tumat Mate. How does that work? And let us attempt to ascertain the ideas they express. We should consider first the concept under which the Torah itself includes the whole mitzvah of Para Aduma, namely the concept of, as I said before, chatat, which characterizes this mitzvah and which forms the basis of its halachot. Chatat, a clearing away of sin, a cancellation of the sinful act, is a concept that belongs exclusively to the fear of morality. You can't have a sin offering if you don't have concept of sin, of what's good, what's bad, what's evil, right? That's morality. Now, the mitzvah of Para Aduma is Chukat Torah, the fundamental institute. And by the way, he translates Chukat Torah differently than many others. Many people think chok means something that's unexplainable. He doesn't translate it that way. For Rav Hirsch, throughout the Torah, the word chok does not mean an unexplainable mitzvah. It means a mitzvah that is fundamental. It is the core. So somehow, Para Aduma is the core of Judaism, is one of the cores of Judaism. It's one of the pillars that Judaism stands on. Right? So how's that? The fundamental institution of the whole teaching of Tumat Mate, which in turn is the principal category of the whole teaching of Tuma altogether. And since, in other words, we have concepts of Tuma, Tahara, there's the entire sections of Torah law, or the mikvah, and the Para Aduma, and the washing the clothes, and all the other stuff that we've been talking about all the way back in Vayikra, when we talked about the Mitzorah, somebody with Sarat, I said lots of different kinds of tuma, the nida, all of that is tuma, right? So that tuma, that concept is a core concept of Judaism. You won't understand Judaism if you don't know that there is such a thing, or maybe even on a higher level. Let's be frank. If you don't know what it means, then there's a lot of mitzvot you're doing, and you don't know how and why you're doing them. Right? So it's a fundamental thing.
I'm sorry. Would you mind giving like an example? I don't know why I'm
Of
like how if you don't know it, you're gonna get a lot of things like
right, if you
wrong. Or
don't,
we're talking about like need like
yeah, sure. Let's say nida, right? A woman who's on her menstrual cycle has to separate from her husband, in more than just physical ways. So if you don't know, and then has to go to the mikvah, etc. So if you don't know why, if you don't know what it means, you might be going through Judaism a little bit blindly. Yeah, okay, I'll go to the mikvah, etc. Whatever. Okay, fine. I won't pass the salt shaker to my husband. What? Why? Like, what's the big idea? So there are big ideas, and it's the not knowing them is kind of leaves us sort of, let's say, blind to what Judaism is fully about. I mean, again, you could go through the motions, you could wear the right uniforms, you could do the right actions, and not know why you're doing them. And that's not the kind of Judaism that Rav Hirsch would want you to perform. So let's keep going. This is a big piece. So, and since the Torah refers to Para Aduma as chatat, it is clearly directing us to the sphere of morality. So this somehow tuma has something to do with morality. That is the sphere in which we should seek the meaning of the laws of tuma and tahara in general, and of the mitzvah Para Aduma in particular. The foregoing serves as a clear confirmation of the conception we have already arrived at regarding all the mitzvahs of Tuma and Tahara discussed in the Torah thus far. Moral freedom, so we asserted, is the first and indispensable condition of the whole sanctification of life, which the Torah obligates us to strive for. In other words, the whole point of life is to recognize the fact that we have freedom to choose what we do. That's the point of life. That's, by the way, what he's been saying pretty consistently, rather consistently, completely consistently, if you want to be honest, throughout his commentary on Chumash, all the way back to Bereshit. Okay? This fundamental truth is threatened by the sight of man submitting to death, for the human corpse demonstrates the power of death for all to see, and the superficial observer perceives in the corpse the power of nature dominating everything, including man. In other words, if you're there, right? If you are in front of a dead body, you might at least momentarily forget the fact that this human body once had choices and was completely able to make whatever decisions this person wanted to make. And now this person can't because nature took over. And you might be under the impression that nature is always in charge. I can't choose what I want to do. I can't choose, not doing what I want. My body wants me to do this thing, so I have to do it. I have no choice. I have no freedom. Nature. I'm just an animal like everybody else. No, says the Torah. You're not. You can control your nature. You can do the opposite of what your nature wants you to do. Right? I think we've said in the context of another class, if I'm not mistaken, the Jewish life cycles class, where we said that one of the important concepts of the of freedom of choice is not to choose what you want to do; it's the ability to choose what you don't want to do. Right? I don't want, to do such and such, but it's the right thing to do, so I'm going to do that. Right? So that sort of concept, that's the fact that nature does not dominate us. We dominate nature. So he continues, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to finish this essay today, but at least we'll have a good representation of what all of this is about. So he says, if the whole man has succumbed to death, if the corpse lying before us, overwhelmed by the compelling force of nature, represents all that there is to man, then man, even during his lifetime, is no different from any other living thing. We're just like any other animal. We're just like any other plant. He's under the spell of a universally compelling necessity. We just do what we have to do. If all this were indeed so, if we're just animals following after our instincts, after our nature, then this physical must would not leave room for any moral thou shalt. If you must do it, you don't have room in your body to say you have to do something else, right? Then moral freedom would be an illusion. God's moral law would be inconceivable, and its demands to freely dedicate one's existence and will to the purifying and vivifying fire of the sanctuary would rest on baseless suppositions. And he quotes other places where he says basically the same idea, especially on Vayikra early on, 5:13. In other words, that again, the idea is that we might be living under this delusion, right? That we have to listen to H-Shem, because H-Shem said so, or whatever. So that's more than that's not a delusion. That's actually fact. He spoke to us. He spoke to all of our ancestors at Har Sinai, and he told us what to do. And that being the case, we can't just do whatever we want whenever we want. We have to do what he wants us to do. So the whole purpose of the laws of tuma and tahara, as represented in the book of Vayikra, is to negate this idea, to push away this crazy thought. These laws confront the demoralizing illusion of physical non-freedom with a divine guarantee that man does indeed have moral freedom. Throughout our lives, whenever the energy of moral awareness is threatened by the reminders of bondage to physical force, the law reminds us of the tahara element of moral freedom, as we have already noted in the various sections of tuma and tahara in the sections dealing with them. So again, through his long commentary on Vayikra, by the way, originally published in 2 volumes. Vayikra, his commentary on Vayikra is 2 books, right? His Rav Hirsch's commentary on the Torah is a 6-book commentary originally. So 2 of them just on that. So again, the point being that this is an important idea that we have this freedom of choice. Here, this same Tuma Tahara legislation seeks to proclaim the great concept of chatat publicly before the eyes of all Israel through the nation's priestly representative in full view of the sanctuary. Thereby, it lays down as the moral basis of the whole life of the people the truth that man can be free of sin, can clear himself of sin, and can remain free of sin. Those 3 things, very important. Those are the main concepts. That's why it's a chok of the Torah. That's why it's a fundamental of Torah, because man can be free of sin. You can live a life. You're not forced to sin, first of all. Number 2, if you did sin, you can clean yourself of it. There's a tahara process. That's very fundamental. A lot of people I know have dropped off the bus of Judaism because they messed up somehow and never thought that they can be forgiven, or whatever you want to call it. And finally, the 3rd thing is they can remain free of sin. Once you are clean, you don't say, but I messed up once upon a time, 5, 6, 7 months ago, 7 years ago, whatever it is, I messed up and I can never be good again. No, that's not true. Once you're on the way to teshuvah, that teshuvah can last forever. Such is the meaning of this chatat, this symbolic clearing of sin that must be performed outside the sanctuary. It is not to be equated with the sin offerings that are made inside the sanctuary, for they atone for one particular individual for one particular sin. The atonement is attained through an act symbolizing his vow to remain faithful to his duty henceforth. In other words, a person's regular chatat, sin offering, is just for one individual. You can't do a group chatat offering, right? Each individual needs to do it, and when the person does it, they're supposed to have in mind that this symbolizes the fact that I will never do this again, right? So this chatat, on the other hand, the Para Aduma, which is called chatat, right, publicly proclaims that it is indeed possible to be free of sin. The man is indeed capable of controlling himself in the face of any physical temptation. This chatat proclaims the general fact that man is endowed with moral willpower. And that's a fundamental idea, right? We can be good. We can, if we mess up, we can become good again. And last but not least, once we're good again, it doesn't mean we're going to backslide and be bad eventually in the future. We could be good forever for the rest of our lives.
Kind of sounds like the Constitution, like or like things from like the like
Yeah, freedom. Good, very good. Yes.
moral power to choose.
Right. Right. Inalienable right. That is correct. However, and this is probably where we're going to stop at least this essay for today, and maybe we'll pick this up again next time. But in proclaiming man's freedom, it recognizes that he is subject to physical forces. We do have physical desires. We do have physical, forces and physics that weigh us down, and gravity, literally, right? And other things, the different temptations, and death itself comes for everybody, right? It demonstrates moral freedom in connection with the physical subjection. It does not teach man to close his eyes and ignore the physical subjection, which is a part of his nature. No, you're not supposed to say, "Oh, I'm not. I never want to do that." Let's be honest with yourself. You know you want to do it. Admit it to yourself. Say it out loud when you're alone in a room. Say, "I want to do that thing, but I won't." Right? Like Rashi tells us about the sin of eating a non-kosher meat. And you're not supposed to say, "Oh, kosher pig is disgusting. Ew, gross. I don't ever want to eat that meat." Pretty much 90-something% of the world's population seems to like that meat. There's probably something good about it. It probably tastes good. That doesn't mean you should eat it. You can control yourself and say, "I want to eat it, but I won't because H-Shem told me not to." That's the mitzvah, says Rashi. Right, so here too, right? It shows man in the whole contrast of his nature, for he is mortal, and at the same time he is eternal. He is fettered, means he's weighed down, and at the same time he is free. He is endowed with physical powers along with moral powers. Yes, you want to do it. Yes, you can do it, but you can also control yourself and not do it. By placing him in the totality of his dual nature before the sanctuary and the one sole God, who is the one with absolute freedom, this chatat elevates man with his whole nature, with his transient physical powers, and with his eternal moral powers, into the free, eternal sphere of the one sole God, and says to him, "Do not be misled by the sight of corpses and of death. Become free, become immortal, not despite, but along with all those aspects of your existence that are mortal and physically fettered." In other words, not because, me not following my nature is gonna be bad for me. No. If it is physically bad for you, then then that's what H-Shem wanted, I guess. There's no such thing. And when you see a dead body, don't be under the impression, even for a moment, that now this body is free. He can do what he wants. That's not the idea. We're supposed to be encouraged to live this life as best we can. So from this perspective,
Are we not?
What?
Sorry, we're not allowed to say, like if someone's in pain, like a lot of pain, and then they pass away, sometimes I think like psychologically you want to say like, oh, they're in a better place, or like they're now relaxed or at peace. Can you say that,
yeah.
or you're like, no, not
Yeah,
really.
sure. I mean, that's usually something they say to I was asked recently by a friend how to speak to an atheist who doesn't believe a non-believer about death. How do you comfort an atheist? And so we have other ways. What you're saying right now is basically what you'd say to somebody who doesn't believe they have a soul. So in terms of a soul, they're in a better place for sure. You don't have to say that to somebody. right? They're in a world of truth, they've got the clarity of what is God, who is God, etc. And they're feeling the radiance of Hashem Shechina. But what do you say to somebody who doesn't believe that there's a soul? So to them, you'll say, okay, maybe you'd say something to that effect of, they're not feeling any pain anymore. Yeah, that's true. Also, they're not feeling any pain. They're not only are they not feeling any pain, they don't feel anything. They don't. They have no concerns over what's going on in the world that they left. But again, that's not what we're even talking about here. Here, the whole idea is what do you think when you see a dead body? What might you think? So Rav Hirsch is telling us, and this is pretty much the end of what we're gonna cover in this massive essay today. Maybe in future years we'll get a chance to finish it or get closer to it. But the idea is that our lives are lives of freedom. We can make choices against and despite what our nature might want us to do. And if we see a dead body, we might forget that. We might think, death took that. Nature took that. So we're in control of nature. In the end, who wins? Nature wins. No, says Rav Hirsch. That's the whole idea is, yes, there is nature. It's a powerful force, but we can always defeat it. And there's a spiritual entity inside of us that's beyond nature. That's kind of what he's saying here. So he says, be the immortal master of your mortal body. In the midst of tuma, preserve your tahara. Beautiful phrase. That should be like a bumper sticker, right? Again, be the immortal master of your mortal body. Your soul is forever. Your body is for a short time, right? That's the difference between immortal and mortal. You're welcome. And in the midst of tuma, this whole concept of being controlled by nature. I am who I was born to be. What's that Lady Gaga song? Right? I don't know what it is. It's
Born this way.
Huh? Yeah, that one. Yeah, born this way. Whatever it is. Right. So I don't know the lyrics beyond that phrase. But even is this concept, I was born this way. I can't change who I am because I was born this way. That's not a Jewish belief. The Jewish belief is, yes, you were born a certain way. Yes, you have a certain nature, but you have the ability through your neshama to change that, to fight against your own nature, and that's what we're on this earth for. That is our purpose in this world. Right? People, somebody who is overly generous has to learn how to rein that in. Your nature is to be generous. You can't always be. Shaul HaMelech was overly generous. He didn't kill off Amalek, and that led to very bad consequences. Literally, almost the worst possible consequences for the entire Jewish people. So throughout our that's just one example from Tanakh. Sorry?
Benji, turn on your microphone. Turn off your mute.
I thought that was a question. All right, but that's the idea that we can and should in this world fight against our nature, and that's what gives us the greatness that we're supposed to have. Okay. Let's see, that's the whole essay there, and I just skipped forward through. Let's get back to the Torah here. All right, so we have 20 more minutes. Let's try to cover some more ground. We're gonna skip to chapter 20. Chapter 20 is already the chait of Mei Meriva, and Moshe is told by Hashem to get a stick, go to the rock, speak to the rock, And Moshe, out of whatever you want to call it, frustration, anger, maybe necessity or whatever, he didn't speak to the rock. Instead, he hit it, and that caused somehow his punishment that he didn't make enough of a kiddush Hashem. We've spoken about this in previous years with different kinds of commentaries, but today we're going to look at the Kli Yakar of Prague. So he writes, so he knows that in this particular verse, chapter 20, verse 8, that's Chaf Chet, Pasuk Chet, that is, Pach et hamateh, grab, right, Vakel et haida atav Aharon, so grab the stick and gather the people, you and Aaron, Achicha, your brother, B'dibartam el hasela, and speak to the rock. Le'enehem, in front of their eyes, and from somehow from this speaking to the rock, water is going to come from this rock and give drink to all the people. Lahem and you're going to bring water from the rock. They're gonna the people and the animals are going to drink from it. All right. Why don't the people have water? By the way, they don't have water because they've had water for all these 40 years in the desert. In the schut, in the merit of Miriam, they've had the Mei Meriva. Now Miriam has passed away. That's what happened in the beginning of chapter 20. And so the people complain that they don't have water to drink because there's no Be'er Miriam. So now the Moshe and Aharon are tasked with the job of bringing water to the people. Says the Kli Yakar. He says, Aharon. He says this stick that Moshe is using is the staff of Aharon. Why? It had been resting in front of Hashem. If you remember from last week's parsha, after the rebellion of Korach, which, by the way, for these people was about 38 years ago. Right? This is we fast forwarded a lot between last parsha and this parsha, so we're at the end of the journey almost, and Aharon had a staff that grew almonds, and that sort of proved to everybody that he was supposed to be the Kohen Gadol. So that same almond-bearing staff was put away within the Kodesh Kodashim, right near the Aharon. And so Dvara Bilti V'tovlin ki lo piresh ma tivo shel mata Aharon lekan. It doesn't really explain why we're using Aaron's staff here to do this. But you see, there was a very important reason. Hu haya eitz yavish. It was a dry stick. Dry, right? It was wood, a dry piece of wood. Shelo haya bo lachluchid mayim. It had no moisture of water at all. 1 second. It had no moisture of water at all. Okay. And Maim klal mikol makom hotzi perach v'tzitz ve'ein perach v'tzitz below mayim ela she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu gazar alav sheyotzi mayim v'perechem. So water is a stick that is dry, that has no moisture, has no water, doesn't usually have blossoms and fruit growing out of it, right? So, and the only reason that Aaron's staff did in that case was because of the Gezerah of Hashem. Hashem decreed that it should do this, so that's why he did it. Went against nature. We had all this talk just now about being against your own nature. So too, with Hashem's help, different things can happen that are against nature itself. V'ratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu shemoshe yikach mata Aharon v'yaruhu el kol Yisrael lomar. He wanted Moshe. Hashem wanted Moshe to show this staff that grew almonds and fruit and blossoms, even though it was a dry stick. And with that same stick, he wanted Moshe to talk to a rock that doesn't have ears, that doesn't have the nature of hearing, and the rock would unnaturally give water to the Jewish people. Mina Eitz Yavesh, Kikach Yotze Mayim Mitzur. That's how water can come out of a rock. It's not supposed to come out of a rock, but if it does, that means that there's Hashem is controlling things. It's a reminder that there's a Kiddush Hashem. And that's what the punishment eventually would be for Moshe was he lohemantim bi. He said Hashem says to Moshe, you didn't increase the faith in me. I wanted them to realize and recognize that everything comes from me. If you're stuck in a situation, if you're cornered in a spot where there is no salvation, there's no ability to get out, you are stuck. You have no way out. I'm there, and I'm your way out. You're thirsty. You have nothing to drink. Hashem is going to help you. Don't complain to Moshe. You have a personal relationship with Hashem. Talk to him. It's not a mistake. He points out, interestingly enough, just if you're curious, gematrias are cool sometimes. So he says that Sela, this rock that Moshe was supposed to hit, he says here, I'll say here on the top of the top here, the second word in the next year, Sela begematria 8. That's easy, by the way, to do, because ayin is 70. It doesn't really matter what the number is, but there's an ayin in 8 and there's an ayin in Sela. So all you have to figure out is Samach Lamed and the Tzadi. So Samach and Lamed are 60 and 30. That's 90. And Tzadi is 90, so it's pretty easy. Gematria 90 plus 70. If you want to know the whole thing, which is 160, you're welcome. I did the math for you. So either way, that's the gematria of Sela and 8. And so that's why he was bringing the stick of Aharon to this thing. It wasn't just to show off a staff and that the staff had magical powers. The whole point was Hashem makes miracles. Hashem can do anything he wants, and you have nothing to be afraid of under those circumstances. All right, let's keep going, and let's look at an interesting incident. We have the whole story of the king of Edom and Moshe's attempt at traversing the land. A lot happens. This is all in. This is already in Revi in chapter 20, verses 17 through 19, and other places as well. Moshe sends a message to Edom and Nabra. I said chapter 20, verses 17 to 19. Chaf Yud Zayin to Yutet. Nabra na ba'artzecha v'lo na'avor b'sadeh v'cherem lo nishte meim be'er derech hamelech nilech lo nita yamin usmo ad asher na'avor gvulecha. So he says, let us go across your land. We're not going to go through the fields or the vineyard. We're not going to drink the water from your well. We're going to go on the main road, the King's Road, and we're not going to turn left or right. We're going to stay on the road, and we're going to go all the way through your territory. We're not trying to start anything. We're not trying to make any problems, etc. V'yomer Elav Edom lo davor. Edom said, in other words, the king of Edom said, no, you're not going to pass. B. We're going to stop you with a sword. Whoa. So what should have been the response, by the way? What would you expect to be the response at that point? Let us go through your land. We're going to be nice. We're not going to veer off the road. We're not going to trample your fields, whatever. And so Edom's response is, if you try, we're going to kill you. That's kind of a little extreme, right? So this is a psych. Huh?
I don't know. Like, how do they know that they're truthful? There's been lots of people that'll say, "Oh, hey, we're going to be peaceful people, and we're going to go through your land," and then they don't.
Okay. So that could be the response. If you're a normal, logical person, that's what you would say. You'd say, "I don't know. How do we know that you 3 million people are going to be good people?" So that's not how he responded. He responded with, "You try, and we're gonna kill you." Like it's not like it's not a gentle like please don't. We don't know if we can trust you situation. Edom is saying we will kill you. So the response to that should be, I would think, you're going through your life, you're minding your own business. You're like, let's say you're in a parking lot of some supermarket, and some complete psycho comes up to you and threatens you with death. What do? Well, unless you're very confident in your abilities to fight this psycho, the normal thing to do is to turn away and leave. That should be the end of it, but it's not, because the Jewish people have a response to this. V'yomru elav, they said to Bnei Yisrael, said to him, "B'mesila nal el mimecha nishte ani umiknei natata machram rak ein davar b'raglai avora." So no, we'll please, we're going to stay on the normal path. We're and if we're thirsty and we need to drink something, we'll pay for it. The guy just said, "You come to my land, I will kill you." How is this a response? Please let us travel. It's just a small. It's not a big deal. Rak ein davar b'raglei avora. We're just going to walk on our feet. Please, just why? Just go around. So the way this Forno understands this, 1600s Italy, the way this Forno understands this whole thing is that there's a lot of back and forth here. What was actually happening is that Edom did not want the Jewish people to come through. They were violent, evil people. It's not that they were, as you suggested, just like afraid that their property isn't going to be taken care of. They were evil people who were looking for a fight, like some people are. And when Moshe suggested that we go through their land, their response was, at first, rather political. It's like, oh, no, if you go through our land, then we've got people who are going to be upset that you're trampling their land. I don't know if I can protect you, so maybe don't. And so Moshe responds, "Oh, yeah, we'll stay on the road. We won't trample the land. We'll do our best, and we'll pay for any damage, etc., etc." Then he threatens him with a sword. That's quite a jump. B'mesila nale, Moshe said, we're going to go through the roads, right? The main roads, right? Just hine ze ulai yikara im yavor ba'arim. Right? We're not going to go through. We're not going to just go through the towns. We'll go through just where there aren't people. You're worried that the people are going to get upset that we're there, and you can't protect us from your people. Don't worry. We'll just go. We'll go far away from everybody. We'll go far away. Bilvad lo tikra shams siba v'shita orer et amcha b'cherev l'katenu. And there's not going to be any concern that they're going to attack us or threaten us. We'll stay away. And still the response of even to that was, "Oh yeah, you try and we're going to attack you with the sword." So he had plenty of power, king of Edom, and he was just making up reasons to not let the Jewish people pass through. And even when it was very clear that the Jewish people could safely get through, the king of Edom made it very clear that he was just a bloodthirsty, evil person, the king of a bloodthirsty, evil people who were looking for a fight and were ready and willing to kill innocent people to protect their turf. All right.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can tell me like to continue, like you want to continue, but it just sounds. What? Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Keep
I'll
going.
wait till later. No, I can
Go
wait
ahead.
till the end.
All right.
Yeah, I'll wait till the end.
Oh no, go ahead.
I just find it hard to like understand, like after like October 7th and everything, like if let's say people of Gaza were like, "Oh, Israel, we're just gonna go through your land. we're not gonna bother you. Like we're just gonna stay on like territories. I wouldn't want them coming in.
I don't understand your comparison. We didn't do
Like,
anything to the people of Edom.
but how did they know that we wouldn't do anything?
We didn't. If the people of Gaza before October 7th would have said we're traveling through your land to get back to where we belong in Jordan or whatever, to Egypt, you think Israel wouldn't have let them? I mean, it's by the way, it's a again, it's a false comparison on so many levels. I mean, you're saying like
Well,
Edom, huh?
what aliyah is this? Like didn't like the Jews like wasn't there the thing with Amalek and Canaanim before and they fought them? Like
No,
maybe they
this is
consider
before
that
that.
before.
Yeah, I think it's
But like the
Sichon
or
and Og.
I don't know, they're like even the Red Sea like splitting of the sea, like they know that the Jews have a lot of power, so maybe
That
like
wasn't
they're
the.
gonna have the same issue.
You're assuming things. You're assuming that they considered that uh, Israel's power. It was Hashem's power, right? That split the sea, and maybe they knew that. Maybe they didn't. The point is, this is 40 years later, right? They're not concerned that these are not. This is not a group of people who were threatening them. If they wanted to threaten them, they would. They would say, "Let us cross through your land, or we will annihilate you." Right? That's not what happened. They're like, "Please let us pass through your land." Oh, you won't? Okay, we'll go around. That's what happened. They had no reason to send an entire army to the border, and threaten them with death. Right? It was all very. It was supposed to be a very polite palaver, a very nice little powwow between the king of Edom and Moshe, and it turned out the people of Edom were much more violent than they needed to be. All right, look at the Aliyah. I think it's the fifth Aliyah, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, let's keep going. So later on in the parsha, they lose the clouds of glory that are protecting them because Aharon dies. Big parsha, I'm telling you, a lot of stuff happens. And when that happens, the Jewish people are bitten by snakes. Maybe they deserved it. We're not going to get into that. Obviously, they deserved it. Hashem did that. That's kind of how you know. And Moshe is told to save the Jewish people by creating a sort of image of a snake that's up on this pole, and by doing that, the Jewish people would look up. Says the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah tells us the Jewish people would look up, and by looking up, they would look up to the sky and recognize, as we just said recently, that Hashem is in charge, Hashem is in control, and Hashem will take care of us. And that's what saved them and healed them. That's pretty clear in the commentary that we're about to see from the Ibn Ezra. Now we're going to go a little bit over time. I apologize, but this is a beautiful piece, and we don't often get a chance to see the Ibn Ezra. I mean, we have the chance, but we don't take it. That's a different story. All right. So Bamidbar Chaf Aleph Chet. So 21:8 in Bamidbar. So Hashem tells Moshe, he says, Hashem el Moshe, saraf, make a saraf, like a fiery serpent, or whatever you want to call it. Visim oto al nes, put it on a pole. Vaya kol nashuch v'ra'oto v'chai. Anybody who is bitten by these poison snakes will look at it and get better and not die. They will live. V'chai. Says Ibn Ezra, Al Nes Shaya Gavoa Viru Oto Hakol Virabim. So he says it was on a pole. Why? So people could look up and see it, so more people could see it. That's why it was on a pole. He could have, in theory, just made this copper serpent and left it on the ground. But more people will see it if it's higher up, right? So that's why it was put Al Nes on this pole. Says Ibn Ezra, Virabim Hishtavshu. Many people make the mistake. Ve'omru ki zot hatzura lekabel koach elyonim. That this fiery serpent had certain magical Kabbalistic powers. It drew in powers of the above, of the heavens. Chalila v'chalila chalila, he says. God forbid you should say such a thing. Ki hadavar nasa mitzivoy Hashem. This is only done, this verse says. It's not like Moshe said, oh, you know what's going to heal them? If I make a copper snake. No. Hashem said, Moshe, make a snake. Happens to be Moshe, it was Moshe's chiddush to make it copper, but we're not, we've spoken, I think we've talked about that in previous years, based on a sort of a play on words. Obviously, it's more than that, but let's keep going. Anyway, the ein lanu lechafesh lema tzurat nachash im lo ken iranu yesh eitz v'yimtik hamayim hamarim afilu hadvash. So we have no total reason to understand exactly why it had to be a snake, so why it had to be a nachash. So it seems to be the simple explanation is they were being bitten by snakes. So somehow, if you want to know who's in control of the snakes, it's Hashem. So maybe that's why. So, but says the Ibn Ezra, the truth is, you can go through Tanakh and find lots of examples of times when why is it that it was a stick that was used to make the bitter waters less bitter, or why in different situations we've had the honey was used to sweeten the bitter waters. A cake of figs is used to boil things for King Cheskia, for back in Malachim Bet, right? So a lot of why a certain thing, why a certain detail is the way that it is sometimes sort of secretive. The Torah doesn't tell us exactly why what's used is what's used. But when it comes down to it, be'emet ki nishgava mimena dat elyon. We have no way to really know Hashem's full knowledge, and that's really a great way to end this class today. We don't know why the Para Aduma works exactly the way that it does, why it doesn't do certain things. We don't know exactly why, in this case, why Moshe was punished. We don't know exactly why he was supposed to use the staff of Aharon, although the Kli Yakar gives a pretty good explanation. We don't know why Hashem wanted the Jewish people to go through Edom when they weren't able to go through Edom, and why they had to go around, etc. And we don't exactly know why Hashem chose to ask Moshe to make this particular image in the shape of a snake, but obviously it worked and it saved lives, and that's how the Jewish people have been able to survive, not always understanding what we do and how to do it, but always knowing that Hashem in the end is in charge and is protecting us. And the more that we understand, that's what we were reading about earlier from our verse, the more we try to understand, and the more that the symbolism begins to make sense to us, the more properly we'll be able to really follow in Hashem's ways and do the right thing. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a good rest of your week and a Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you.